for this day, for the gift of life, for many, many blessings, we give you thanks. We pray that you will bless our time together, bless this food, and be with all those people whom we love wherever they may be. Gather and give you thanks in your name. Amen. So, we have a tradition in the community church. Actually, a tradition, it goes way back to actually right now. That if there's any ladies who are present, that they get to go first. So please help yourselves. And then if we'll go from the western end of the room. Sorry, guys. But you're closest to the bar.
Thanks, guys, for having me here. I'm Tyler Smith, my wife, Kara Smith. It's Kara with a C, okay? It's very specific. A lot of Kara's out there with a K. And that's, I have three beautiful young girls. Hannah is 9. Lexi is 5 and a half. 5 and a half. The half is very important too. Thank you. I finally got it, right? And this is Victoria.
Craig Moreland is going to conduct kind of an interview and do it that way. And then following that, you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions. We have plenty of books for sale if you're interested in buying one. They're, I think, $20. And they look like this. Great title, Called for Traveling. If you don't get that, you're probably not a basketball fan. Haven't read all of it, but I've read most of it. A few sermon illustrations in there I haven't used yet, Tyler. But, excellent. There you go, Sandy. Thank you. And Craig Moreland, by way of introduction, Craig is my best buddy from way back. He's probably quietly behind the scenes been more involved in the life and development of the community church than anybody. And he's been a great friend and a confidant. He runs New Vision Athletics, and which is a program many of your children have been involved in. And so, Craig, thank you for, after a long day of running basketball games, we're sneaking away at the end of the night and coming out. Tyler Smith, I've known since he came to Lake Bluff. He was born here, moved away, and then moved back. And he moved into the house across the street. And this was almost 30 years ago, 28 years or so ago, on Prospect Street. It's clearly, it's hard to understand the ways in which God works, but the basketball gods clearly were speaking at this time, because at that stage of my life, I was quietly known as Vanilla Thunder. Not that tall, the way I cracks the boards, and here's this young prodigy that moves in across the street, and I taught him a few things, a little shake and bake, a little shamalama ding dong, some of this stuff, and it worked out for Tyler. Actually, he was about as great of a young man as you could have as a neighbor. He used to take care of my dogs, Hannah, when I was out of town, and there was a daughter, his oldest daughter's named Hannah, and he just was a great young man, and had the privilege of his dad periodically sending me Tyler's blog entries as he's playing basketball around the world. And Tyler has this extraordinary sense of humor, a great way of telling a story. And when I found out from his dad, Lindley, that those stories and those blog entries and more were put together in the form of a book, it just occurred to Craig and me that it would be awesome to bring Tyler back to town. And so we are delighted to welcome you, Tyler, and Craig. If you want to come up, we're glad you're here.
Tom had mentioned that he read part of Tyler's book. I'm just happy to hear he's consistent with that in the Bible. So it was my idea. I had Tyler in to talk to our NBA families the other day, and he did a wonderful job. But he also did a wonderful job being interviewed on Channel 9. And I thought, I just kind of threw it out to Tom today. I'm like, hey, what if we did this as kind of an interview style? So I think he's good thinking on his feet with good responses, and seeing how I'm not a professional interviewer, I have all my questions on my phone. We all need to have a prayer that my battery doesn't run out before this, otherwise we'll get to the family questions or all your questions first. So, what a lot of folks wouldn't know about Tyler is, and especially for some of the young men that are here, he honestly played on one of the best basketball teams at Lake Bluff Junior High. His name's on a banner there. They went like 30-1 in the 2 years that he was there at Lake Bluff. We have very few winning teams in Lake Bluff, so that's his legacy just right there alone. But he also went on to start at Lake Forest High School and set the single season record for most wins of any team out of Lake Forest High School. Went as far in the high school tournament at the end of the season than any other team. So I have to tell you, as I read his book, the tough thing for me is he takes things so lighthearted and makes such fun of himself that I just want to make sure when you all read it, you understand what an incredible local athlete this guy was growing up around here. He was in the papers every week and accomplished a lot of things that many kids around here dream of doing. So congratulations on your success, Tyler. So take us back. You grow up in Lake Bluff, right? You're on these great teams, Lake Bluff, Lake Forest. Who were some of your heroes growing up as a kid?
Yeah, so I grew up in Lake Bluff on Prospect Avenue, like Tom was saying, right across from the church. And I was a huge Cubs fan from day one. Yeah, so I learned disappointment at an early age. It's really a healthy thing. I remember being I was 4 years old, and we actually went to St. James Church, and Pastor Danielson said, "Hey, I've got a couple extra tickets for the Cubs games. Anybody want to go?" And so my dad grabbed them, and I went to my first game. And Keith Moreland hit a grand slam to win the game. Yes. So
I can catch a pop fly.
So I was hooked from day one, and I really looked up to Ryan Sandberg. Like I wanted to play for the Cubs. That was my dream. Baseball was actually my favorite sport growing up, and I played basketball. I played a lot of tennis actually. I played soccer. I played a year of football, but. I remember Ryan Sandberg and Sean Dunston, Andre Dawson, those were like the guys I aspired to be. And 1 year they had this little kids' day thing over All-Star break. We got to go on Wrigley Field and run around, and it was like a dream come true for me.
You know that Ryan lives in Lake Bluff now, right?
I heard that is me. I didn't go knock on his door. You guys know that.
You can do a drive-by later.
It's me, Ryan.
Did you have any pressure from your parents growing up to play any particular sport?
I really did not at all, and that was really refreshing looking back, because I know a lot of my friends and a lot of guys that do. And I brought this up the other day. Andre Agassi, if you know his story, as a kid growing up, unbelievable tennis player, prodigy, and his dad pushed him so hard. He actually hated tennis pretty much his entire life growing up, but he was so good at it, and his dad pushed him so hard. I never had any of that. It was something where I loved to play sports. I loved to go out, and when I was little, I would just run the bases at Artesian Park and slide into every one. Like, there's nobody there. And, like, my mom would just sit there like, "You ready to go?" So I loved just being active and being outside and playing sports. But yeah, fortunately, I never had any pressure to go to any college or whatever. My parents really kind of let me, obviously they guided me and asked me questions and tried to lead me well, but that never pushed me.
So you go on to Lake Forest High School. Can I ask what year you were probably called up to varsity? Were you called up early, or did you?
So it's funny, I haven't thought about this in a while. My freshman year, Bob Olson was the head coach of the varsity. And my freshman year, right away, I started on the sophomore team. So I got bumped up one level from freshman to sophomore. And we had a really good team that year. We were doing really well for the sophomore level. And at mid-season, at Christmas time, Bob Olson invited me up to varsity. And he said, "It's up to you." I said, "Do I have to go?" He said, "No, it's up to you." And I wasn't going to play that much because Ed Cage, who was a real big name at the time, he was a big guy, a couple years older than I was. he was actually on varsity, and so I wasn't going to get a whole lot of playing time. So I said, you know what, maybe I'll kind of wait until next year. And part of me really wanted to do it because of the prestige. Oh, as a freshman playing on varsity would be kind of a big deal. But the other part of me, I just wanted to play a lot. So I finished out the whole freshman year with the sophomore team. And then when we were finished my season, I joined the varsity for playoffs. And then my sophomore year, I started on the varsity, and was sophomore, junior, senior year, I started on the varsity.
So you played under Bill Donnellan at that time. I know there's some dads also here that probably had their sons play under Bill Donnellan, a guy who often wore his emotions on his sleeve.
Nice way to say that.
He was a foot stomper. Any funny stories about him, practice or game-wise?
Well, how much time do we have? Gosh, Coach Donald, I remember one time, he had all these little sayings, and my friend used to joke, Tyler, he talks like he eats cigarette butts. Like, oh, Tyler, you're going 95 miles an hour in a 25 mile an hour zone. And, one day he's talking, and all of a sudden something flies out of his mouth, and we hear ding, ding, ding. And he's like, oh, I just lost a tooth. He picks the tooth up, puts it in his pocket, and just keeps on yelling at us.
So you finished your career at Lake Forest with one of the best teams that's there, and now all the offers start rolling in for college, right? Why did you choose Penn State, and what other schools were you thinking about?
It really kind of started my sophomore year. I was 6'7" at the time, and then by my junior year I was 6'8". So your name basically gets put on a sheet that goes out to all these universities. Oh, here's a tall kid, and this is high school. So you start getting letters, and they don't even know who these guys are half the time. In fact, in my first letter I got from Penn State, they spelled my name wrong. And I'm like, Smith, how do you mess up? I'm a little worried about these Penn State people, So I went on some unofficial visits to Notre Dame, Illinois, went to Loyola downtown, went out to some Ivy League schools. I went to Harvard, Princeton, Dartmouth. So I really saw a pretty big range of schools. And then when it came down to it, some of the schools kind of fell off because they would sign other guys. And actually Kevin O'Neill was the head coach at Northwestern, and I really liked Northwestern. But Kevin O'Neill, he just seemed like kind of a strange guy. And if you guys have seen him or know him, he's pretty intense. Like, he makes Bill Donnellan look like like my daughter or something. So anyway, I ended up not going there, and I went out for a visit to Penn State, and was really blown away. Amazing facilities, great school, and the guys on the team were really terrific guys. So these were guys with brains in their heads. They weren't just a bunch of knuckleheads. They were just there to play basketball. And so in the end, it was a really good fit for me, I think, athletically, but also academically. It's a really good school.
What's a Nittany Lion?
A Nittany Lion? What is a Nittany Lion? So the Nittany Mountains are right there in Pennsylvania. And supposedly there used to be lions there, and I guess that's kind of where they get it from.
So you played in a lot of Big Ten arenas. College kids are known for their good sportsmanship in places. What was the toughest college arena that you played in, and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say it's there's the two that come to mind right off the bat. Number one was Michigan State. So the Breslin Center, they always pack. There's so many people that Michigan State is such a big basketball school that anytime you go there, it's just so loud and so intense, and it's a really nice stadium. Everybody's kind of on top of you. I remember being there my junior year, and Michigan State was number 1 in the country, and we shot the lights out first half, and we went up by 20, and we go into the locker room like, we got this. We come out in the second half, and they go on this monster run, and like it felt like the building was shaking, and we're in a timeout, and we're all looking at each other like, what just happened? And we're actually still up by like 6, but it felt like we're losing by 15. And by the end of the game, we lost by 15 or 20. So it was like a 40-point swing. And, a lot of that had to do with the crowd. Once they got going, the momentum builds, and it's game over. And then the other place was Illinois. We went down there. I think we played there 3 or 4 times when I was there, and they have the Orange Crush, right, their student section. And their student section, they're at the time, they probably still like this, but they were so well versed. There wasn't, the internet wasn't a thing really, and so, but they would do their research and they get their hands on media guides, and I don't know how they did it, but they would know everything about you, like as a person. And so, like in high school, I sang in the chorus, and so before the game, they're like, "Sing us a song, Tyler." We had 2 7-footers on our team. One was 300 pounds. The other one was like 215 pounds. And so they would yell at the one guy and say, "Hey, Witkowski, quit eating all of his food."
Sorry, I was his fans yelling at us. So you had the opportunity to do something I don't think anyone else, unless I know differently, was able to do, and that is play in the NCAA tournament and make it to the Sweet 16. What was your most nervous moment of that?
I think when we first went down, our first 2 games in the first round was in New Orleans, and it was at the Superdome, which I guess they just blew up there in the stadium now. I don't even think it's there anymore. Maybe that's the Superdome. But we walked in, and it was the largest indoor athletic facility I'd ever been. It was just massive. I mean, it looked like 2 miles away, it was like the upper deck. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're gonna like play in this thing. They'd set up this court in the stadium. And it was really exciting, but also kind of nerve-wracking. And the way they had it set up to where when you were shooting free throws, the giant jumbotron was like directly behind the basket. And so when you're there and you're shooting, and the camera would be on you, and so you're like looking at yourself through the glass. So it was the most like disorienting thing ever. And I don't think I really realized that until in the middle of the game I got fouled into the free throw. I look up and like there I am, and I'm like, this is so weird. Like, can you guys like get a crowd shot or something? So it was challenging, I think.
And I've heard this too, that I have some friends who play at the United Center and like some charity things, so they won, an opportunity to play there. It seems really hard, the depth perception versus like a high school gym, right? Did you feel that at all in that?
Yeah, we did. That's a very real thing, and you have to kind of like just really focus and trick your mind into reminding yourself, okay, like this is the same 3-point line distance, this is the same free throw line distance, because there's all this open space behind it. And if you ever played a real tiny gym where the wall is right there, it feels like you can make everything, and then it's a very it plays games with your mind.
So let's switch gears. You graduate from Penn State, and the offers start rolling in for professional contracts, right?
I wish. All right, so I'll give away chapter 1 of the book. I was in a van. I was working for Gatorade summer right after I graduated from Penn State. So I got my degree, and now I'm making the big bucks, $6 an hour, working for Gatorade. And I get a call, and it's my one of the assistants in the basketball office, and she says, "Tyler, you got to call this guy back. He's got an offer for you in England, and it's for 2 years, and it's all this money, and call him back. And I'm like, okay, Sue, like, relax, I'll call him. So I'm like jumping out of my skin. I'm so excited, and I call this guy, and he starts rambling on. He talks to me for 2 hours, and hey, we need to know right now. I'm like, right now? Like, don't I have some time to think about it? No, we need an answer today. I said, all right, let me call you back. Just don't do anything. I'll call you back. So I come to find out this guy was a scam artist, and he would call guys that had just finished playing and say that he had this offer for them, and it was this made-up team. Well, it was a real team, but it was like 3rd division England, which isn't even like a thing. I don't know. But you could find it on this one obscure website, and he'll ask guys for money and say, hey, $7,500 or $800 for your work visa, and oh, we'll reimburse you when you get here, kind of thing. And guys fall for it all the time. And unfortunately, I had somebody tell me, hey, this isn't real. So my very first offer wasn't even real. So, because I'm dying to play. Like I had no backup plan. I wasn't looking for a regular job. Like there was no interviews going on. And but eventually, I did get an offer from a team in Holland, and not a huge basketball country, but they speak a lot of English over there, so that helped a little bit. And so I went over there for my first year overseas. There, you'd have 3 Americans on a team, and I was one of the 3. I was the big guy, and they assigned a point guard and a shooting guard.
And when you got picked up at the airport, who picked you up?
The head coach shows up, and his name was Herman, and he says, hello, Tyler, I'm Herman. And he had this funny little voice, and he stuttered a lot when he spoke English, but he spoke actually fluent English. And he says, well, come on, we're going to go to your apartment now. And he drives me about an hour and 15 minutes to my apartment. And I said, wow, Herman, the apartment looks great. Thanks for the nice place. And he says, yeah, I cleaned the whole thing myself. So you're like our head coach and like our cleaning like gym guy. And but really, humble guy, a super guy. And he actually, when he signed our point guard, he liked his offense so much that he's like, we're going to run your whole college system. And it was John Beeline's system from Michigan. And Beeline at the time was at University of Richmond. So he signs his Richmond point guard and brings over John Beeline's offense to play in Holland, which is John.
Now he also had another philosophy too. He wanted to spread the gospel of basketball throughout Holland, right? And so he had you guys as players put on clinics. Where was one of the clinics at?
Yeah, so usually the clinics were at schools. We go into elementary schools, and he drew smiley faces on all the balls, and you go in, and none of these kids had really ever played basketball because soccer is like the big thing in Europe. And one day he says, "Okay, we're going to a clinic. Hop in the car." Well, where are we going this time? He says, "Oh, you'll find out when we get there." So we pull up, and there's barbed wire all around these fences, and I'm like, what kind of school is this? Barbed wire in Holland? It's not a dangerous country. So it's a prison. And so he brings us to this prison. I'm like, are we going to play with the prisoners? And he's like, oh yeah. They get rec time too. And so we're going to come in and basically be the basketball coaches for the day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is about to get very interesting. So, we go through metal detectors, we got to do our pockets and everything. And, we are in this little tiny gym, and there's two baskets and a bunch of guards, and then all the prisoners start coming in, and I'm picturing I don't know, St. Quentin or something, and it wasn't like that. These guys are some of them were kind of little scrawny guys, and I'm like, look what you do, you steal something, pack a gun, how are you here? But yeah, it actually ended up being a lot of fun. These guys loved playing with us, and we got to do a lot of fun things. We didn't make them run any sprints or do push-ups and that. We were like, no, you shoot. No.
So for the sake of time, I want to skip a little bit ahead, and I also don't want to give away a lot of the book. You want some folks to enjoy all of that as well, too, right? So let's get to Uruguay. So what happens there?
So I got a one-line email from a guy. Hello, my name is Daniel Morales. Would you like to come play basketball in Uruguay? all my emails sound like that. I'm like, do they have pro basketball in Uruguay? Where is Uruguay? Could any of you guys find Uruguay? Some of you probably could, but I could not at the time. So I was 24, it was my 3rd year, and it turns out they have a pro league there. And when I get down there, come to find out that all the floors are kind of like this. There was 4 wooden floors out of 16 teams. So 12 of the teams, you were playing on concrete or some kind of marble. It was just so crazy, chaotic. And I'm thinking, is this a pro league, And but it was we were about 6 hours from Montevideo. We were way up north in the country, and all the teams seemed to be in Montevideo except my team. We were like way out there. So we always had this big long road trip, and anyway, it was chaotic. Like there was no rules in the stands. I mean, people would have flares in the stands. They were banging drums like the whole game. Like we had one game where a guy who was on the staff of the other team, he ran onto the court and they couldn't get him off the court. The ref couldn't get him off. There was riot police at like every one of our games, and the riot police like they couldn't really get him off, and so they said, all right, game's over. You guys are ahead. You win. So like that was it. You know, it was crazy stuff like that. That was like the normal.
Last question, and then I thought we'd hand it out to everybody else to ask questions. It seemed like your faith is brought up quite a bit in the book. Can you explain a little bit how that fit into your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up on a St. James Church here, a Lutheran church, and then when I got to college, I was like, yes, I get to sleep in on Sundays. So, you know, it was one of those things where I didn't really have a whole lot of interest in God or in Christianity. Once I got to college, I was glad just to kind of have a break. But then I started going to some Bible studies and really grew a lot in my faith and asking a lot of questions. And for me, that became something that was very real for the first time ever, this relationship with God, relationship with Jesus. And so then that really just kind of carried over and it just snowballed. And so by the time I was playing overseas, now I really had to lean on my faith a lot more because I'm going to new countries where I couldn't speak the language. I didn't know anybody. My first few years, I got cut from the team. I tore my Achilles tendon. I was out for a whole year. I had teams that weren't paying me. That was a big issue too. You're in their country, so there are rules. If they don't want to pay you, like you're kind of out of luck. And so a lot of it just became a real faith journey for me because it was like, God, I have no control over really anything. You know, I'm playing, and you know, I don't even have control over like if every shot goes in. You know, so what do I really have control over? And the answer was almost nothing. And so a lot of it I just had to turn over to God in terms of walking with Him. But when I look back over the course of the 11 years that I played, it's amazing how God kind of directed each one of my steps, and I really wanted to be in Italy. Like that was my place I wanted to go to spend my whole career there and eat pizza and all that good stuff. But He had a much different curvier path than I could have ever thought. I never thought I'd be in Uruguay. Who thinks like, oh, let's go play basketball in Uruguay, right? But I made such great friendships and connections down there. Was actually over in Japan for about 5 years, and just met a lot of really neat people. And the whole way, God was kind of teaching me a lot of things. One of them was how to be humble, because as athletes, you see all these athletes that are very proud of themselves and very full of themselves, and I didn't want to be like that. But there was times where if you have a little bit of success, then you have to learn how to kind of handle success, but also handle failure. So God was always my rock, and Jesus has always been my rock ever since college, especially. And some of the ups and downs of any career, mine just happened to be really unstable as a basketball guy, because you never knew from year to year where you were going to be. It's not like I signed a 6-year deal in one place. It was, I signed a 1-year deal, and that was really only kind of month to month or week to week sometimes.
Let's hand it out to the crowd. Questions?
Well, how were the referees?
The referees, oh my gosh.
That's a loaded question because he's a referee. Make it shiny.
So here's bad, and they're 3 states away. Is about kind of how I thought. They were so bad in some of these countries, and one of the problems was sometimes they just weren't paid enough. They didn't really get good training, and so I think some of it wasn't always their fault. But in Holland, for example, it's a pro league in Holland, it's the top league, and the refs got paid, I think, like 40 euros a game, which is like maybe 50 or 60 bucks a game.
I'll take it.
You take it. So they were really bad. One time in Argentina, I went to a team, and fans never like referees, just as a general rule, but the fans in Argentina and Uruguay were just ruthless. And when I got to this team, they were doing okay. We ended up finishing in 4th place, which was pretty good out of about 16 teams. And at the end of the season, they actually bumped us down 2 notches to 6th place. And I said, why did they bump us down? They said, oh, well, before you got here, our fans kind of attacked the referee. Can't do that.
Kind of.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Tyler, what basketball players did you replicate around? Like shooting styles, rebounding, what kind of players?
Yeah, well, a lot of people call me the White Jordan.
Straight from Vanilla Thunder.
But no, I was probably more like a very, very poor man's Dirk Nowitzki kind of. I really like to shoot it from 3, but I also like to post up. So wherever I kind of had the mismatch, if I had a bigger guy on me, I'd take him outside. I like to do a lot of pick and pops, pick and rolls. So anytime I got to a new team, I'm like, where's the point guard? Hey, can I take you to dinner?
Nice.
Best friends with those point guards. Yes.
Do you ever hope for the NBA? Like if you did well in Europe, do you think you get the contract in the NBA? Or?
That's a great question, and a lot of guys, that's a very viable path. That wasn't really my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is kind of let's land in Italy and just let's love this awesome culture and really cool cities and stuff and the pizza, and the gelato. But I had this one opportunity to make the NBA, and I was at a China draft camp. So the Chinese Pro League would bring all their coaches to an obscure place in Oregon, and they would work out about 80 guys for a week. And at the end of that week, they would do a draft, just like a little NBA draft. They'd have their own little Chinese draft. So I wasn't good enough for the NBA draft, but here it was for China. And I did not get picked by a team, or I got picked, but a little too late, didn't get a contract. But there was a guy there, Rick Barry, who maybe some of you guys have heard of. He's an NBA Hall of Famer, and he comes up to me and he says something that nobody has ever said to me before, and no one will ever say again. He says, Tyler, it is a shame that you are not in the NBA right now. And I looked at him like, you are crazy, man. I'm thinking this. I didn't say it to his face because, I don't know, apparently he thought he saw something. And I said, well, thank you. He says, I want to make some calls for you. And I said, you call everybody. You call everybody. So he's like, I'm going to call Pat Riley. I'm going to call Jerry Sloan. And we're going to try to make something happen. That's awesome. Do you want to be my agent? He's like, no, I don't want to be your agent. I just want to help you, get to the NBA. I said, great, because like a year ago, I was carrying toilet paper in my bag to away games in Uruguay. So, nice upgrade. And Jerry Sloan was great, and I got a call from the Jazz. He followed through, and sure enough, I flew out there for a workout. I was there for a few days and did well enough. They invited me to stay for training camp. And then that's kind of where you hope to be, because then you're one of about 17 guys, and you can have a shot to make the team. That year I did not make it. I was there just for preseason, but it was a really amazing opportunity. They only kept guys that had guaranteed contracts that year, so I was just coming as a free agent.
Yeah, but no other person in Lake Bluff or Lake Forest has had a tryout.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, hopefully
don't sell yourself.
somebody's coming.
So did you ever feel like packing it in? Definitely not.
Yeah, there. I feel like packing it in. No, I never felt like packing it in. For me, I was always very, very driven and pretty determined guy. For me, I always felt like I could play a little bit better. And even if I had a really good game, I said, but I missed that 1-3. So for me, I was always a guy that thought, I can do a little better. I remember in baseball, like, I love baseball growing up, and when I hit a home run, I was like, I hit that pretty far, but I'm pretty sure I could hit one farther. So that was always kind of my I don't know, it's my makeup, I think. And when I was 24 and I tore my Achilles, that would have been a time where, if I wanted to pack it in, that would have been probably a pretty good time, because those are not quick turnarounds. It's not 3 or 4 months. I mean, it's a full year. You're going through rehab and not really knowing if you're going to make it back. But I always felt like, I want to keep doing this. And it's funny, because my first year, there was 2 other Americans on my team, and I would ask them, hey, are you guys going to play next year? You guys think you're going to keep doing this? And they're like, oh, I'm not sure. Maybe, see how it goes. And I'm like, I definitely want to keep doing this, So, but yeah, I always kind of wanted to keep going. Yes.
Can you tell a story about Kobe's dad?
Oh yeah, Kobe's dad. So I was playing over in Thailand. I went to a team over there, and it was a short stint. It was only about 2 months that I was going to be there. It was towards the end of their season, and I was playing for a Thai coach, a local guy, and we made playoffs. And then they fired the coach, and I was like, why are you going to fire the coach? We just made playoffs. He's doing a nice job. And they said, well, we got somebody else who wanted to coach the team. I'm like, who? He says, Joe Jellybean Bryant, Kobe's dad. I'm like, no way, like Kobe's dad's gonna coach us? So sure enough, there's Kobe's dad who walks in and starts coaching us, and really super guy. He very easygoing guy, just one of these guys that loves the game. He doesn't care if he's coaching 6th grade girls in the middle of Arkansas, or if he's coaching NBA or in Thailand. He just loves coaching the game. And so I played for him for kind of the remainder of that season. The best story about him is we were playing in a tournament. It was separate from our playoffs. It was kind of a strange thing, but there was some funky rules, and we only had 4 guys eligible to play in this game. I was one of them. We had a couple of junior players and one other guy. And Kobe's dad is coaching, and he's like, I'll play, give me a jersey. Where's my jersey? So he's 57 years old. And we're playing a really good team, and he played 40 minutes up and down, and we called a couple timeouts to try and, keep them upright, But he outscored me in the game. And I'm like, all right, it's probably time for me to hang it up, Kobe's dad's outscoring me. So,
Maybe.
How tall
Maybe
was
2 more questions.
Sure.
What was the inspiration for the book?
Yeah, great question. So the book was it was something where I'd always kind of send out mass emails and kind of a blog type thing to friends and family for a lot of years. And the response was always really encouraging, and really I frankly enjoyed people's responses and knowing that they got like a good laugh out of it, because I was living such an unorthodox lifestyle. It was so different than any of my friends who were just working regular jobs and had families and stuff. And here I am trying to make my way in all these obscure places. And so towards the end, like 2013. It sounds kind of funny, but my New Year's resolution, I was like, I've always kind of thought about putting all this into a book, and maybe this year I'll do it. So I took a month out of every year. January I wrote about my first year in Holland. February I wrote about Italy, and so on, all the way down. So by the end of the year, I had 11, 12 chapters, and it kind of had my first draft of it. But I thought it would be fun just to have it kind of all down. And I didn't have big aspirations of being like a New York Times bestseller, but maybe only my mom's book club was going to read this thing. My kids someday, when they get old enough to even want to read it. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of put it down. There were very few international basketball books out there. Paul Shirley has a really, really funny one called "Can I Keep My Jersey?" That's a great one. And he's got an amazing sense of humor. I think his is way funnier than mine, but yeah, so that was kind of a couple things, but I thought it was always kind of a little mini life goal to do something like that, and I thought, well, this is probably the best topic I'll ever have.
You sell yourself short. He has, if anyone has read it, he has an amazing sense of humor. And that I'm not a big reader, but the nice part about this book is you can read parts of it and come back to it a month later because of the journey, you know, like, okay, we're in a different spot now.
Most of us who knew you in high school knew your sense of humor. How did it help you out in your career?
Well, as you might imagine, you have to have a sense of humor going through some of these just crazy situations, especially living overseas and playing overseas. And my thought was, you can never take yourself too seriously because that's when you get all just frustrated and things. And there was guys that would, come to these other countries and expect it to be like America. I'm like, dude, you're in Japan. Like, it's never going to be like the U.S. But these guys, it's funny. My one teammate, we were on a bus, and my wife and I were on the bus going to the lake in Holland, and we wanted to mess with this one rookie. And he was an American guy, he was from Florida, and he had never been out of the country. And he thought this was so challenging living in Holland. I'm like, this is like the easiest place ever. And so I think it was probably my wife, Kara, we're driving along the countryside, going to the away game, and this guy's name is Q. And he's like, man, look at all these cows. Y'all ever seen so many cows out here? We're like, yeah, man, they really like their cheese and their milk here. And he's like, man, I've never seen so many cows. And Kara goes, hey, Q, you know about the brown cows, right? And he's like, no, what? Well, that's where you get chocolate milk. Chocolate milk's from the brown cows. Oh, for real? So, I'm playing for coaches. I literally can't understand a single word that comes out of their mouth, like in Italian or in Japanese. And so you have to kind of just be able to roll with a lot of this stuff and have a sense of humor about it. And when you look back, a lot of it, like, it might make you so frustrated or angry, but it's really kind of funny. A lot of this stuff is so out of the ordinary. So I don't know, for me, maybe that's more of a survival technique than anything, but it makes it a lot more fun.
Tyler, to wrap things up, tell us about what you're doing today.
Yeah, so today I live in State College, Pennsylvania, which is right where Penn State is. We're right in the middle of the state. You can picture Philly out east and Pittsburgh out west. We're right in the middle. And I work for a medical device company, and we basically, anytime someone's getting a knee replacement, a hip replacement, break a wrist, and need plates and screws, our company makes that hardware, those products that orthopedic surgeons use. And so I'm in the operating room almost every day, kind of walking surgeons through surgery sometimes, other times just standing back and letting them do their thing. But it's a little bit of a sales, a little bit of a service type job. But I introduced my family already. Just want to say thank you again to my awesome wife, Kara. She was such a source of strength and a godsend for a lot of years. And if you do check out the book, you'll see she's the real hero. You may want her autograph rather than mine. And the last little story I'll tell you is when I was in Uruguay one time, I ended up being there 3 times. And I called back home, and she was with our 3-year-old Hannah. We only had one at the time, and I said, "Carrie, what you doing?" She says, "Oh, I'm with Hannah." And I said, "Well, I got you a plane ticket to come down here for the rest of the season." And she says, "Oh, that's great. When's the flight?" I said, "It's in like 90 minutes." She's like, 90 minutes a day? I said, yes, get the stuff, get to the airport, you gotta go. And because there was like no other flights, it was a really quirky situation, and so she like throws everything together, somebody drives to the airport, and she makes it down there. And the part I didn't tell her was that she had to actually go through 5 different countries and 5 flights. And she was looking pretty good. She was 6 months pregnant all the time. So word to the wise, don't ever do that.
Tyler, first of all, thank you. What I take from tonight's gathering is that after you basically moved into our neighborhood, I did a little mentoring and coaching for you. You decided to move to the other side of the world. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Gentlemen,